16.
Hello and welcome to Slash Dupe, or as my fiance called it today, Slap Dude. So obviously she's not listening to it. It's the mysterious movie pitching podcast with a twist. Each member of today's podcast has been given the same movie or TV title, some time to prepare, and has come to the table to pitch their own unique take on that title. I'm joined by my Slash Dupe regulars and co-hosts Dan and Ryan, and between us we'll be hearing 2 pitches before the break and 1 afterwards. It's after the break that we'll be hearing a special pitch from the Dupe. The Dupe is the one person at the table who has not been given the title in advance, and they will have to improvise their idea at the end of the show, following everybody else's.
So I feel like this is a good moment probably to ask what I reckon is probably a stupid question, but now seems like a good time. What is a slash dupe?
Do you know, it's been years since I've been asked that. A slash dupe is, but I'm so glad you did. A slash dupe is a film in the very early stages. It's a rough version used in post-production. It can only be described as the unfinished building blocks of what a film can become. So together on Slash Dupe, you will at least get that. The audience will at least get the takeaways that they'll get the unfinished building blocks of the foundations of a finished film. But that inquiring voice that you heard is our guest today, Michael. Welcome, Mike. Without giving away the title, how confident are you with your idea for Slash Dupe today?
How confident am I? I mean, it depends what you mean by confident, really. I think it's entertaining. That's about
yes.
it.
yeah. That's the minimum requirement, I think, for a podcast.
I'm looking forward to lowering the tone.
Well, we've had some people have lowered the tone quite significantly, so I'm excited to see whether you're going to raise that, match or raise that.
I had a stalker rabbit in my last one, so you know you've only got up from there to go. So,
I mean, that sounds amazing. Let's talk about
that. We were trying to get away from it at the time, so there's no way we want to bring it back.
All right,
listen to the previous episode of Slash Dupe to find out more.
Okay, so Ryan's confident as the dupe. So Ryan's duping today. Dan, how are you feeling today?
I mean, it's been a week, Sean. It's been quite a few weeks.
Yeah.
So obviously with all the news and everything that's been going on, it's been quite hefty in my household. So I am less prepared than I usually am, but more prepared than Ryan in that I maybe had a conversation with my wife about it half an hour ago.
Okay.
She can take credit for this one.
You know, like in Gladiators, where they'd be like, "You must go on my first whistle," and like go on the second whistle. Dan's just going on the first whistle with like a 10-second head start.
That's
exactly it.
That's totally
I haven't done well in the heats, and I've got like the first 5 seconds. Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I don't have an idea at all for today's Slash Dupe title, so I'm very much looking forward to what you guys can come up with. So, who am I? I am Sean, your peerless moderator, and at the end of the episode, I should be selecting a winning idea to go through to the next heat. What happens with those winning ideas at the end of the season? You'll have to wait until the halfway point of today's episode to find out. So, what is today's Slash Dupe title? Well, I can reveal the title for today's episode is BIGWIG. It is BIGWIG. And as always, you can add spaces, you can add punctuation as long as it resembles the semblance of the title BIGWIG. Okay, Mike, as the guest, I would love to hear your idea first for the title BIGWIG.
Fantastic. Right, okay. So, this is what I'm thinking. Pixar, except maybe shit Pixar, like knockoff kind of Pixar, maybe.
Okay. Disney Animation Studios.
Disney Animation Studios, like DreamWorks or whatever.
I was just about to say, I'm glad none of us said DreamWorks when you said shit Pixar, but
we're all thinking it.
DreamWorks is a fantastic institution. That sounds like I'm being sarcastic. I'm being genuinely serious. So anyway, knockoff Pixar. I'm thinking, do you guys ever see the film Look Who's Talking?
Yes.
A long time ago, yeah.
Ridiculous movie.
A long time,
I want to say like John Travolta,
Yeah.
but babies communicating with each other telepathically.
Was John Travolta Look Who's Talking 2? Or was he Look Who's Talking 1?
Oh, I actually can't remember.
Oh, maybe it is Look Who's Talking 1. I don't know.
In any case,
we'd like to know in the comments, wouldn't we? That's one of the. That's a burning desire.
Question,
burning question. Yeah.
So, knock off Pixar, but Look Who's Talking style, except instead of babies talking to each other, it's wigs. Now, bear with me. So, imagine a world where something's gone wrong. I haven't figured this part out. Maybe like a post-apocalyptic something, but every human has alopecia. Complete full body alopecia.
Okay.
So maybe it's like maybe a virus, an unthinkable virus springs up out of nowhere and tramples the entire globe. No idea where that
idea came from. Long COVID causes it.
Exactly. Suddenly one of the symptoms is alopecia. And so wigs and false hair become a massive part of life. So you have some people where, like, everyone's got loads of different wigs. People wear fake eyebrows, pubic wigs, merkins, all this stuff. But each wig can communicate with every other wig, and they've all got their own personalities, and all different voices and stuff. So basically, the plot is we center around a wig shop at the beginning, and all the different wigs are like talking to each other, and like you've got the old like gruff wig who's like been there for years and never got picked, and like is really bitter about life.
Yeah.
And then, you've got the kind of young new wigs who've just been out of the box and they're so excited and optimistic to be picked by a new human, to come in to like, keep their head warm or whatever. Because wigs are such a massive part of life, wig shops you'd have wig shops for punk hairstyles or for, emo hairstyles, or, you'd have different wig sizes for like kids as they grow up, because your baby's got to have a wig. So you'd have like a section, and you might have, those cartoony single curls that come out of like a cartoon baby's head. Yeah. That could be a wig you might buy for your baby.
Yeah,
anyway, this is all fluff, background, extra color. So we follow the story of, get this for genius, Wiggy, who is our main protagonist, who is a young new wig who's just come into the shop, super, wet behind the ears, naive, really optimistic and loving life. And so basically, the wig, we follow her journey as she goes from the shop. She gets picked really early on, and she gets taken to a lovely home, comfortable, not like super rich, but like a comfortable home, and she's given, just the best life. She gets put on a lovely fake head on the mantelpiece. She gets waxed and gelled every day, shampooed, conditioning, the works. She's having the best life, okay? Mm-hmm. Then one day, she's on the head of her owner in a convertible, and it's windy.
Oh.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the tension is building.
Yeah.
Now the Wiggy, gets blown off the head of her very caring owner and carried on the wind off a bridge into like a river, let's say. Mm-hmm. Now, no, I know,
I'm so sad already.
I know,
she's really
I'm hurting. And so she undergoes this journey, and this is perfect timing for one of those montages. Like, I haven't seen Flushed Away, but I feel like that might be something similar, where you follow the journey of the wig. It's great to drop in a reference that I haven't seen.
Flushed Away, but I reckon that's the quality level of this. Yeah,
it's DreamWorks. Anyway. That's why he hasn't seen it.
I've seen the trailer. I know enough. Yeah.
Just from the title, Flushed Away, it's a similar thing. So the wig undertakes a journey. Maybe it gets picked up by a fishing trawler or something and then dumped somewhere else. Maybe someone fishes her themselves out of a lake, whatever. Anyway, this journey takes the Wiggy to somewhere, I'm thinking either like a sewer or a dump, or maybe, given the world we're living in, maybe they're taken to like an abandoned hairdressing like emporium mall, because no one goes to the hairdressers anymore because nobody has hair. So I'm imagining, basically, I want her to land somewhere that's like really off the beaten path, like like a dump or a sewer maybe, or
Birmingham.
I I don't know. Oh yeah, and the example I was going to give was that in this world where people don't go to the hairdressers anymore, all those hairdressing like malls are completely abandoned, and you've got like cobwebs on those weird things that go over people's heads and do something that don't know what it is. So she lands in this place, and she finds this community of like disused, discarded wigs, who have created this like society in this place. And she kind of becomes a part of their fold, and the movie is like her trying to get home.
So it's very much Homeward Bound, but with wigs.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. Homeward Bound, but with wigs.
Sold.
Sold, yeah. So the society is headed by like whoever the big wig is. So the big wig is the head of the society, and maybe he's taking a shine to Wiggy or whatever, and wants to keep Wiggy in, but Wiggy's trying to get home. Mm-hmm. So then you have.
Please tell me Bigwig. Sorry, please tell me Bigwig is like an old toupee that has been around from the before times.
Yeah.
Right.
I was on Al Capone. Oh wait, no, it can't be. Yes. But like, it has to be from someone.
It's got to be Robert.
Depends when.
It's got to be voiced by Robert De Niro, right? Sure.
Exactly, like an old. Like one of those like pompadour toupees. It's like from with like a big old quiff at the front. Yeah. Dejected, bitter, cynical.
Can one of them be on Fonzie when the stunt double jumped the shark? Like in the famous sort of jumping the shark that Fonzie did. So like they're not even Fonzie's hairpiece. They're like the stunt double's hairpiece. You just have this eclectic bunch of wigs in this.
Absolutely.
In this mall.
One of them should be the guard. I can't think of what they're called.
Like beefeaters.
Beefeaters, yeah. One of them should just be one of those. Even there's a hat, not a wig. He's like in disguise. No, I'm a wig, honestly.
Absolutely. So the problem is, if this feels bitty, it's because as I was developing this, I had new idea after new idea after new idea, and I lost track completely.
Why wouldn't you?
Well, exactly. I mean, look at what we're dealing with. So this is where. So the story initially appears to be just girl lost trying to get home. However.
Oh gosh!
This is where I'm gonna throw in some details. So at the very beginning of the movie, we get shown. I want to set up two things. One is the commercialized nature of this wig industry. So you might see billboards with like, "Hey, try the new wig 2000. You'll never get cold," or whatever. And it's like it's everywhere, and everyone thinks this company is incredible. And they're always like, "Hey, you got a wig you don't want? We recycle it for you," and all that stuff. Meanwhile, at the very beginning, when we're setting up the wig shop, I realize I'm doubling back, but you'll see why it's necessary. At some point, I want a bald guy, to come into the shop protesting this big company. And being like, they're controlling you and brainwashing you, and you think you need these wigs, but you don't. Look at me. I don't need to wear a wig and be controlled. All this kind of stuff. And get this, he is a member of an organization called Q Ball.
Oh, brilliant.
I love it.
So these cue balls are, they believe that the Illuminati of the world are secretly controlling everyone with their wig company. And so if we cycle back forward again to Wiggy's journey, this is where it gets a little bit grey. The details are becoming harder and harder to reconcile, but at some point she meets someone.
Is that a wig pun? Is that a hair pun, by the way? You're getting a bit grey? I just didn't want to let that go unnoticed. Is that some sort of hairpiece pun? Nice. It was very good.
Yeah, it's very unintentional, but I appreciate it. Thanks. So along the way, she meets one of these cue balls. Okay. And I haven't figured out exactly how yet. But she meets a cue ball, and the cue balls, obviously, they don't know that wigs are actually sentient and are able to walk and talk and stuff. But the cue balls are against the big company, because they think it's controlling everyone, and somehow information has got to the wig community. Got to the wig community that actually this big company is not recycling the wigs at all. They're incinerating them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Or if they're more like plasticky wigs, they're melting them down. Yeah. huge. Yeah, so they're right. Like there is a conspiracy here that goes straight to the top, and anyway, so
pun.
she, well, yeah, exactly. And so they get chatting, her and this cue ball, and basically they see that actually their interests kind of align because they both are against this big company. And when she eventually gets to this outcast organization led by BIGWIG, she wants to get home initially, but then it's the outcast organization that inform her that all the wigs are being incinerated. So then she has a bigger cause, right? And she brings a cue ball in to the organization, but the organization of outcasts, because they're all discarded wigs, they don't like humans. They hate humans. Yeah. So they don't want anything to do with humans. Sure. They want a segregated society. They want their own independence as true individual sentient wigs. God, sometimes I hear myself saying this crap, and I'm like, oh my God.
Listen, you've still got me. I'm still here. I'm still here with you.
This is good. Yeah, it gets better. It gets better. So basically, they come to an agreement where... So initially... All right, I'm going to try and make this make vague sense. So the BIGWIG, I think, is in love with Wiggy and trying to keep her initially.
Okay.
And I'm wondering whether or not there's another new wig that comes in who Wiggy likes. And then the BIGWIG tries to get rid of the little wig. and then what happens
ice them or whatever. There has to be some sort of pun or some sort of
this is the thing.
Pun.
I was like, maybe they get whacked. And I was like, maybe they get waxed.
Well, I was going to say, like, you know what
That's
would be
great.
worse? They get their tips frosted.
And then nobody takes them seriously again.
And then
they've been cursed with the frosted tips.
They become unfashionable,
frosted,
yeah. Or they get dreaded or something, right?
And then basically what you do, like, I'm cutting to the end of doing your marketing for you, but you basically get like BTS to do the soundtrack for it, and they're just a bunch of frosted tipped wigs dancing around, and then there you go. That's how you just coin Korea as a whole market.
I mean, what are we still doing here? Let's make it happen. Anyway, so this is what I'm thinking is Wiggy and Little Wig, whose name I have not yet figured out. They take over the organization, the outcast organization, or maybe they just they show Bigwig the error of his ways, and then they team up, and with the help of Cue Ball, they join together to overthrow even the big company, the big company. Who we then find out is called BIGWIG. So this is the thing, kind of like Big Pharma.
Oh, okay, yeah,
but it's big,
of course.
but it's not Big Pharma. It's BIGWIG. Then we also find out,
love it.
Somehow, don't know how, we find out that Big Pharma, BIGWIG even, is being run by a wig. So there's a...
But how is what I desperately want to know. Is it a wig and several other wigs inside of a coat, and they all sort of, or it looks like a hairy? No, it can't look like a hairy person because they all have alopecia.
Like Wigception.
No,
but
Could you call it back to the beginning? You talked about the one baby hair.
Oh yeah.
Right, and it's like, have you ever seen like a bald guys that have the roll in the back of their head?
Yes.
Right? Have you ever seen that? So I was once working at a bar, and there was a bald guy, but he never shaved. He accidentally, in the day that he shaved, didn't shave that fold. So when he turned around at the bar, in the fold of the back of his neck, he had a perfect line of hair. Right? And it was hilarious to me. But maybe now I saw it for a reason. Maybe now we think this guy's bald, but in that fold in the back of his head, there's the baby hair that we passed over at the beginning.
Yeah, that's like running things.
That's running things.
Have you thought, Mike, about how BIGWIG, the company, has been able to have a spokesperson figurehead that is in fact a wig?
Yes, I have.
Oh.
And this is what I'm thinking. Evil human meets evil wig. And they connected and discovered the humans been made to realize that wigs are all sentient. And together, with their combined force, they are unstoppable. And so you'd have, occasional news announcements or whatever from BIGWIG or whatever, and it's this dude with the evil wig on, and like sometimes maybe the wig is like feeding, like, oh, you gotta say this, and then maybe the dude is doing them. Yeah, so it's a team up. There's already a coalition of man and wig, and they are behind the whole thing. And so then you need your own little lower level coalition of man and wig in the form of, the outcasts and cue balls, who manage to operate a similar kind of ruse where they start the cue balls start wearing the outcast wigs, and they infiltrate the system, bring the guy down, and then the ultimate goal is this utopia where humans and wigs coexist in harmony. And some wigs, like to be on human heads. They like to do that. They like to be taken out and the breeze running through their hairs and getting shampooed and stuff and pampered. And some wigs might not want to do that. Some wigs might be independent and they might want their own, sovereignty. So that's fine too. So you create a world in which you have wig communities and human wig communities. And then because Big Wig, the company's been brought down, it's everything is a much more local business kind of idealized thing in which
I see the representation here.
Yeah, you see, this is allegorical.
We like that. Yeah.
And then also, because wigs are no longer being incinerated or melted down, it's environmentally friendly as well. Everything's being actually recycled and given new leases on life.
There you go.
You see? Boom.
Yeah. I like that. There's more to this than I expected at the start, by the way, Mike. So that was good.
That's really good. I'd hate it if we got there and you were like, yeah, that's worse than I was expecting.
I wouldn't have said that. I would have just said nothing at all. I would have gone, yeah, thanks for your input, Mike. And next, I'm curious. I tell you what, I'm curious about. Because I was going to ask this question, then I realised how stupid it is. Because I was going to say, when do the wigs become sentient? When they're made, by people. But then I thought, well, when you're looking at something like Toy Story, there's like a clear divide. There's like they're in the shops with a semblance of sentience, but you never see them as they're being manufactured. You never see them. So it's just you just take it in an animated film. You just take it as sort of given that they have a sentience of a kind, don't you? After a certain point. Hence
Pixar. Or knockoff Pixar, because I thought about that exact problem. I thought, it's fine if you make it animated. No one asks those kind of questions.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah, you go with it a little more, don't you? So what would the harmony look like between? You noticed at the end of the film there would be this wig harmony between wig and man, as it were, between human and wig. What would that utopia look like? Apart from with the small businesses, and your locals,
Well, there would just be more crossover, I think. You might have a particularly ambitious wig running for office, maybe in a human society.
Sure.
Maybe the technological industry has also boomed so that wigs can buy their own robots that they can sit on and control, and they don't even need a human, and they can still move around with the same ease.
That would take quite a few years of lobbying. That would take quite a few years of society getting used to that first, though, wouldn't it? I'm all for wig robot unification, but I think we've got a long way to go before we get there, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's definitely a journey. There's lots to be done, but I really think if we pull together and believe in ourselves, we can make it happen. Nothing that's worth doing was ever easy.
No. We're just a hair's breadth away from that utopia.
Brilliant. That's the tagline. Thanks for that, Dan. As long as Mike relents.
How long have you been sitting on that for? That was cheap.
He's quiet for 10 minutes and he drops that at the end. Thank
you.
I've got only 2 questions.
Sure. Only 2?
I've got a whole host. I've tried to be very cautious. The 2 biggest questions are... What does the human ever come back into the picture for Wiggy? And what does the human look like? What's the unification between I just want to picture the person at the start, or is it more of a Toy Story 1 where you're not really going to see the faces of the people that, until you see the cue balls?
That's a good question. I feel like, because all Wiggy really wants is to go home, So I reckon once...
That bond has to be strong, right?
Yeah, it's a strong bond, and that's why at the beginning I think it's important to really set up that she's comfortable in this lifestyle with the human and she loves it before she gets set off track. But yeah, so I think whatever happens with the outcasts and with BIGWIG, eventually she reconnects with her humans and goes back. Or maybe they just become really, really good mates and she like lives adjacent rather than with.
Yes, just wig adjacent, yeah.
Wig adjacent.
Sort of, yeah. I do like that. Okay, yeah, that does make sense to me.
Does it?
Well, within the confines and context of this idea, yeah. Yeah, I do like that very much. And I think like there has to be a reason for this person to need a wig in the first place. Yeah, I like it.
Cast, surely we've got to talk about cast. Voice cast. Sorry to jump in before you.
No, that's a vital question, and one I overlooked. So yeah, Mike, what do you think?
Because we talked about Robert De Niro as potentially the head of wigs,
the leader of the outcasts.
But I was thinking Anna Kendrick did such a good job in Trolls that she feels like Wiggy to me.
What
I
was maybe going to suggest, because you're rolling down bad Pixar route, maybe Daisy Ridley wants to cut her teeth in animation as well.
She's the sort of she's Wiggy, possibly herself, isn't it? Doing like sort of bringing her. It depends if you want Wiggy to have an English accent, or.
I was also thinking in case there's song in this as well.
Oh yeah.
Kendrick's got previous with that, hasn't she?
Oh, I hadn't even thought about song. Of course, there's got to be songs.
Surely this has got to be a musical.
It's got to be musical. Yeah, Anna Kendrick would be a really great fit. Actually.
Can we say that whoever doesn't get the role goes towards being the mole or the right hand of BIGWIG? You know, do you know what I mean? Like both are a good fit for both, I think. So whoever turns down the other role will offer it to the other person.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
I like that. And you, Mike, you were saying that you had an idea before we jumped on. You were saying you had one cast member. You teased us with that.
Yeah, I did have an idea. It's actually for a wig character that I didn't put in the end, but I wanted to float with you guys to see if you thought it was a good idea. Because I was playing with the idea of like love interests for the wig or whatever, but there were so many legs to the story. So I was thinking, what if when she was first homed, the spouse of her owner also has a wig, who could be this kind of like slightly smooth, arrogant kind of, hey kid, like all that kind of, like you stick with me, you'll be just fine or whatever. And he kind of expects her to fall in love with him. And I thought that could be, but in like a kind of comic way, sort of like if you've ever watched Parks and Recreation.
Yeah.
The way Tom Haverford is with Ann Perkins, kind of maybe. Like he's smoother version, but he kind of keeps trying.
Yeah.
Just keeps trying.
Sure.
And I thought for comic relief, I thought it'd be really good to have Will Arnett.
Yeah. And you could, in the marketing rights itself, we've got Will Hairnet. So
Will
I think
Hairnet.
Right. So I think even on the strength of that, because these DreamWorksy type films are basically just advertised well, and that perhaps there's a priority over being made well. So that Will Arnett, I'm all over. That is grand. And he needs something after. He did the Lego Batman, didn't he? And then he was in Arrested Development, which was obviously.
If not, he would produce this entire film, and then Will Arnett would be like the Saturday night talk show host on the TV, wouldn't it? If he doesn't play that role, he would be the Saturday night talk show wig.
Yeah, he'll be exec producer. He'll decide to cut his own role. And then he'll just show up as a cameo in like the post-credit sequence as an SNL spoof of of something going on in Wig World.
Yeah.
Ryan Reynolds for the cue ball guy.
Great
I
shout.
feel like he's got that after Deadpool. He's got to get that.
He can do balls.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he can play balls.
He can do balls. Yeah, I also thought that given what the film is, I thought you have to have Seth Rogen in there somewhere. Seth Rogen's got to play.
He'd be like the made out of hemp, wouldn't it? Like the wig made out of hemp.
Yeah, someone got bored on a weed farm somewhere and made a wig out of the produce, and then Seth Rogen comes out. Yeah, he's got to be there somewhere.
So personally, I really only have to just. I don't know if you need to put emphasis on it or not, but I feel like the event. I want to personally. I want to know what the event is that triggers the hair loss in the entire world. You know, and like there's a part of me that thinks, you know, what could this event be? Because and it's in the end it ends up to be something positive, doesn't it? Because you know the world gets to reshape eventually. But does the event is it directly related to wigs gaining sentience, or did they have sentience before this climactic event, or is this event that triggered everything also what gave the wigs their sentience? I suppose that would be my last major question before we greenlight this wonderful idea.
Gosh, this is a major question. I really wish I had a better answer for you. I'm not entirely sure. I feel like the options are either the event that caused alopecia is also what directly causes wig sentience, or there is a simultaneous coincidental event that happens to make all wigs sentient while also conveniently removing the whole of human body hair. Yeah,
or the wigs had sentience beforehand but never quite had the reason to rise up, and they just stayed quiet in a Toy Story sort of fashion. And
I'm thinking maybe that's the one to go for. Is just assume that wigs have always been sentient, and suddenly now they're just enjoying like a golden age of wiggery. That word that I've just made up. And
that's gold.
Oh, there is actually one thing I wanted to raise as an issue. I say that like it's really important.
Raise as an issue.
I was thinking about the problem of why is it that they can like in Toy Story, all the toys pretend to be silent when a human walks in. Do the wigs just pretend to be quiet, or is it one of those things where like I was talking to my flatmate about it, and he said like what if like you just have a tagline at the beginning, or like some little bit of dialogue that's like one of the wigs talking to each other going, shh, the humans will hear you, and they go, no, come on, they're way too busy, they never hear what we say, and then you never talk about it again. You just assume that.
You just well that's on someone's head, and the person whose head it's on goes, huh? Like that. That's all you need to sort of say that the humans can't quite hear what they're saying.
You have those headphones, don't you, that don't go in your ears but can like play sound
like
through your brain
bone conduction ones,
bone conduction. So maybe that's how the humans can hear it. So they can only hear the wigs when they're on someone's head.
Oh, so they have to try and be silent when they're being worn.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
And maybe they just signal, and that's why you get bad hair days, bad wig days, and stuff, because the wigs are signaling to each other.
That's like some wig semaphore.
Yes, exactly.
They're just lifting up different ones. When I was first thinking about this, one of the first things I thought of was like, you'd have like a montage at the beginning and two people like bump into each other on the street, and the two people are like, oh, terribly sorry, and one of the wigs like, hey, I'm walking here, and then you just do really bad film references, or like, hey, my human's walking here, or something really,
that's brilliant. That is a dynamite opening. I love it. Right.
God, so silly.
Amazing. Right, have you got anything else because this is such a good idea, is there anything else that you feel like I've got to tell them this is...
I suppose we didn't really go into much talk about like fake eyebrows and fake facial hair and fake merkins. That could be fun depending on how R-rated we want to go, you know.
Well, I was thinking you could address one moment like when they're supposed to be wearing the wigs, that the cue balls are supposed to be wearing the wigs. One of the lead female humans walks in, and they're like, "Hey, why aren't you wearing like sort of Jemima?" And she's like, "I'm not wearing Jemima on my head." Like just one of those like silly moments.
I was going to say something like that. It would be like when she first goes to the house, and she's like, "Oh, so whose head are you we're on?" And they're like, "Head." What do you mean, head?
Yeah, what do you mean, head? So there's scope for that sort of stuff, isn't there? But would the eyebrows, they would be children, wouldn't they? I don't know, I'm just trying to find ways. That's why they move so much, right? So they're chattering to each other all the time. And facial hair would be, I don't know, they'd be teenagers because they have a bit of attitude sometimes. They present something slightly different facial hair, don't they? So maybe different stages of hair would be growing up. If you were trying to assign it to something in an animated film.
I'm imagining at least one facial hair piece voiced by Nick Offerman.
The most amazing facial hair piece.
Yeah, exactly. And then maybe like the eyebrows of that person's spouse or whatever could be like Megan Mullally, because they work so well together.
Yeah, that's so good. And I'd love it if the beard, the Nick Offerman beard, was attached to like a real like hipster poser who's never done a day's work in his life. So the Nick Offerman beard being like this sort of grizzly outdoors beard is so unhappy being attached to this person's face, you know? It's like the rugged wants to be outdoors chopping wood with its human sort of thing.
Yeah. And like the person is so careless that there's always like food somewhere in him. And he's always like, God, sweet corn again or whatever. And he's
as soon as he comes off, he's kicking it out, isn't he? All the food, he's kicking it out.
He's trying to like shake the
Yeah.
moustache, like trying to shake off little bits of like grease and chips.
Okay, well that was. I already expect it to be good from Mike, but that was an incredibly fantastic idea. One that I'm going to grass him up here as well, because he said in the break that it was an idea that he actually wanted to make, and as it started to form, I was going, why is this the idea that he wanted to make? And then when he got to the end, I thought, yeah, I can see that. I can see why he wanted to make that.
I mean, Sausage Party got made. Like, if it's a cartoon, you can do anything.
Fair play.
That's so absolutely true.
Very good point.
Yeah. So Dan has a tall order here, as he always does, and he often always sort of matches that. But so, how are you feeling, Dan, today about your idea?
That's not going to happen today. That's not going to. I apologise to all our listeners who always look forward to my thoroughly prepared pitches. But this week has definitely been closer to duping than not. But, we'll give it a go and we can all come together.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we normally do with, when Ryan sort of gives us his idea. That's normally a good opportunity for us to sort of throw things in. I'm thinking that it depends what Ryan wants to do. Maybe going forward, we always relish the challenge. He always relishes the challenge of a guest coming in and duping. But I think maybe a job swap. Some kind of exchange program, maybe, where Ryan has a few weeks prep
If in 40 minutes I can come up with the absolute spun gold that I do, imagine what I can do with, I have just compared myself to Rumpelstiltskin as well. But
I think there beginneth the challenge.
But I also don't want to give up this role like Rumpelstiltskin. He enjoys stealing children and spinning
reference
gold.
yourself as Rumpelstiltskin, man.
No one ever
it
wants to be
sometimes
called
takes
that.
its toll, Ryan. I think you feel you've expressed your chagrin and not being able to get as many wins as you'd like to, and maybe now, if you get the chance to prepare, no one's going to stand in your way. Is what I reckon.
All I've got to do is just see. I've just got to work Sean. That's all I've got to do.
Yeah,
I'm unworkable. I'm unworkable.
Insider knowledge.
The idea is
find
win.
Ghost of Tsushima like I did for Christmas, and then you win.
So good.
Great game. Great game.
Oh, such great.
That's why Dan won afterwards.
Exactly. The straight away afterwards. 40 minutes you spent, Ryan. I have spent 4 maybe, and I used my family to come up with some ideas. I asked my little man about what he thought BIGWIG should be, and he said it should be. He didn't know what a wig was to start with, so we had to explain that. That was
interesting.
A bit of a problem. And so we explained a wig, and then he said it should be a wig that's big. Great, great start. That has lots of superpowers.
Right.
And when we describe, I think that's great. What superpowers does he have? All of them. So that I thought that was probably too much to do in one pitch.
Yep.
So whilst I think that one would have won, we're just going to take that one away.
And your kid's
wife,
37 as well, so it's weird that he would.
Yeah, it's really weird that's how he talks now. So, and my wife then came up with 2 pitches. So neither of these are mine, which absolves me of any problem here.
We're desperate to get her on as well, Dan. So you must put the good word in.
She's desperate to listen to an episode at some point.
Of Slap Dude. Slap Dude.
Slap
movie
Dude.
fiction podcast.
Slap Dude. So the first one she came up with was a Pixar. It was a Pixar, and it was effectively a Bug's Life, but with a very small earwig, who was not accepted into the clan of earwigs and had to go on this journey to come back and become the bigwig.
Yeah.
Of the
it would involve at one point going into the ear of the president and giving him advice, right? Hence the earwig. That would be part of the journey of.
Perfect. perfect. So, but we decided we didn't have much to go with. Now that I've said it out loud, I'm like, why didn't I go with that pitch? But we'll leave that one for another time. But we settled. She gave me two, and I decided this one was. It's about a wig shop in, now that I'm thinking about it, in sort of civil rights era America. And we're going from one extreme to the other. It's not a Pixar cutesy movie. It's more like a Steel Magnolias kind of just all set in one location.
Oh, I love that.
In this barber's or this sort of wig shop that is for the women of that era. So I was thinking about don't know if any of you watched Umbrella Academy, and in the second season there's a lot about where the barbers where they're having their civil rights conversations. And I was thinking maybe it was an exclusively black woman shop that catered to making wigs, and we see a small subsection of that neighborhood, which would be a small town neighborhood, I think, in America, and maybe view the civil rights movement through a few people being in this barbershop. And I really like the idea of that, because I Steel Magnolia is a great film, but I also saw it as a play, which my wife was in, and it was amazing. I think it works as both. And so this location means you get to see people in their very sort of their rawest form, where they're being secretive with their friends or not, new people entering, but we get to see the location develop and the people, you can skip chunks of time, can't you? Because you just come back to the same location. And maybe we follow a younger black woman dealing with it with sort of some more established sort of citizens of that community, with older black women creating these wigs, and the wigs are an expression of themselves as they're coming through this time period anyway, but it's mostly about the people. That's my log line, that's my pitch. And actually I say 4 minutes. I had a little think about it, and it feels relevant. Do you know what I mean? Like, it feels like a good idea. But I'm definitely going to need help extrapolating on that, and where our plot might go, and what things we might encounter as part of that.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because the reasons why people need wigs are incredibly varied. Like, when you actually think about it, which we've had to for this, there are so many different reasons. I mean, from sort of illness and sort of wanting to sort of improve yourself or appear a different way. Some of it can be vanity, some of it can be necessity. It says quite a lot about wigs, and then some people just wear wigs because it's easier to wear a wig than it is to do your hair, right? So you have a whole sort of split of different reasons, and that would also cross I expect it would cross all the age lines as well. So with this story that you wanted to tell, which is incredibly important, having lots of different viewpoints, I also think it's kind of interesting when you look at things like equal rights, civil rights. It's interesting to examine maybe why people at the time were talking about the other point of view. I'm not saying, obviously, it's not the correct point of view, but I think that's fascinating, almost like in people who enable the status quo, even within the communities. They often say sometimes, with feminism, one of the problems are other women as well. And so that's an important part of it, as well as, obviously, horrible men. But you have that whole sort of structure, and then also you have different opinions on based on age. I think every decade, the opinions would slightly alter on perhaps how the civil rights would need to be implemented and all of that. It's amazing that we can look back and see how it happened, but at the time you would have expected these places, as they are now, it's one common goal, but everybody's fighting a slightly different sort of fight on the front of this one thing.
I think there's also an element of like trust in the people that are around you, and like sort of shops like that. Like one of my friends who lived in Amsterdam. Like, I know how important a good salonist or barber is to people with black hair, because it's so difficult to work with. And you have to have that trust. I had a friend who would only get his hair cut when he came back to visit his family. He lived in Amsterdam because he didn't trust any of the barbers out there, because he knew this guy. And the same thing, I have a friend who goes to a salonist and she spends 300 quid every time she gets her hair done because that salonist is so good. And so, that's the other thing, like inside of that shop or the salon that you have that level of friendship, trust, knowledge.
They will be
inside
people
of the
that
barber,
know each
inside
other
of the
and,
chair.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was also thinking about like the Luke Cage series and all that sort of basing around sort of that barber shop and sort of the bringing up of, in that particular case, it's the bringing up of young men and teaching them the respect and stuff. But I imagine not being either female or black, I don't know what that sort of culture would be, and I would love to know more about it, especially for developing the pitch. But I imagine that there is a community around that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'd love to explore that and kind of explore the outside world without ever seeing the outside world. So we only ever really see what's happening.
So it's all
through
set
the eyes
within
and experience.
Within the
Yeah,
barbershop.
you never leave the. It's just one location. Yeah, which would make it great for a stage play as well, of course, in the end, because you wouldn't
that's
have
brilliant.
to.
Got versatility already on the brain.
Oh yeah, I'm just selling it worldwide. But yeah, so that you would actively only see what's happening, the events via those people, and their age. We could see them age over a year. It could be a year. It could be a small time frame. It could be the time frame when it's all kicking off, or it could be we see it as every summer or something when this girl comes back from going to college. Maybe she's the first person to have gone to college in that community, and she comes back every summer. So we see her sort of apprenticing or helping her mum out in the salon every summer. So we see, sort of 5 summers or something as we go through. Yeah. So I don't know. That feels like a thing.
Yeah, it seems like something you can hang the rest of the sort of story around, doesn't it? Yeah, definitely. This sort of this relationship between the family members. Can I throw in a soundtrack idea that I was thinking of while you were discussing that? Because I was thinking, I always, when we think of these sorts of things, if we're having fun, I go towards the obvious place, and if we're being serious, I try to go towards a slightly less obvious place. So I was thinking about soundtracks and the voices of people. We had a really fascinating discussion the other day I had one with a few other friends about how they didn't like to listen to video reviews or watch video reviews. They found it sort of a bit of a waste of time. They would have been happy for a transcript, and that's how they like to take in the information. To me, my opinion was that that's fine, obviously, but the thing was delivered in that voice, and it was delivered by a person, and it was their voice is a huge component of it, I think, and sort of it goes into the brain a different way. So I'm really fascinated by the idea of maybe like everybody sings, whether it's to a degree where you want other people to listen to it and you're good, to you want other people to listen to it and you're bad, to being good and nobody listening to you, and the converse of that, where you're bad and you just sing in the shower, right? So everybody's got this voice, and I sort of thought, well, every major character in the film should sing, and it can be the kind of singing that's just casual, like you would sing as you were walking to somewhere without realizing it, a song that you've heard from somewhere else that means something to you, but at that particular time you're just singing it because you're allowing your brain to sort of enter a different place while you're singing. It's almost like a sort of meditation, and that's the soundtrack. It doesn't have to be these broad, amazing sort of stirring pieces of music, but they are stirring in a way, aren't they? Because it's just the voices of the people that you're watching.
And wouldn't it be? I mean, you'd have the stereo you'd have the radio in the shop, so you could absolutely play sort of songs of that of the time and of the civil rights. Like you got like Stormy Weather, haven't you? And like Mississippi, goddamn, you like Nina Simone and like Billie Holiday with like Strange Fruit and stuff like that, literally playing on the background. Like, and you can have that to to highlight the points of what's going on at particular times, and then they can be singing around together.
Well, you'd almost have somebody listening to that as they're mopping, as they're sweeping up some hairs and sorting some stuff out, singing along, and then they move into the back room, and then there's a 2-minute scene of them sorting something out, and it's just them on their own in the room, and they're just singing the lyrics. They know it, and there's no music. Yeah. You're just listening to them carry that message from the radio, carry it to a different place, right? So that's that's something that, I don't know, you don't see it very often because it is unusual, but I think it's...
No, and it is such a strong part of the black culture, especially around then in terms of gospel and stuff like that, that maybe there is some of that. I love that idea that, sort of we can see what's going on through the song. Maybe
it's the character that doesn't want to talk about it in front of other people, but when they're on their own, you can see how impactful and important it is to them. But not everybody has to fight for a cause by using their voice, or or you can support a cause by perhaps not being as good as you would like to be in fighting for the cause. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. I absolutely love the idea of the radio. And yeah, like you said, you could have someone who's a little more introverted, a little less comfortable putting themselves on the spot, and you can see their character develop depending on the time frame you have, with the music that they listen to and sing along to, and how it affects them personally. And I think you could also have a system whereby you can use the radio as its own sort of character, but also as a way to signpost events happening outside the barbershop, whether it's a very specific radio broadcast and that tells you what day it is, whether it's an important day or something happened, or whether it was in I don't know, a specific, like Miles Davis's heyday or whatever. I don't know exactly what time frame you're thinking, but you could completely signpost that with the music that's playing on the radio.
Yeah, with some big knowledgeable things, or events that don't even necessarily have to link to the civil rights stuff, but we now know we're in 19...
Like you'd have it where it's kind of the radio's playing. And the radio is maybe like a news broadcast of like something happening at that time. Like... Dan, if you're going by the sort of Umbrella Academy thing, it will be the assassination of JFK, and you just hear that news report being told, and then they can talk about it in that sort of what that means.
And it'd be interesting if like the radio is our window as an audience and their window into the outside world. If at some point, obviously the outside world, I feel at some point the outside world should be physically forced into their world. Like we should see it sort of a violation of that sacred space at some point, which would only be sort of a reflection of what's going on. But maybe in that sort of that fracas, that the radio itself is broken, and that is like sort of an image of what's going on here. And so maybe it's the quiet person's job, like gently over the next session that we see them putting that back together, trying to refix their connection to the outside world.
I love the idea of viewing the salon wig shop as well as being like a sacred space, because that allows you first of all to feel sacred and safe depending on the atmosphere you create with the music or whatever, but also once you've made something sacred, you can break that spell.
And that feels horrible,
and that's momentous, and that's huge. Whether it's someone coming in unwanted and unannounced or whatever.
You challenge that safe space, don't you? And you sort of have to make it uncomfortable, and then what happens out of that, whether it becomes a safe space and comfortable again, that's who knows whether that will happen. That's for the characters to sort of do.
Yeah.
So is the shop called BIGWIG? Is BIGWIG a phrase they use? Is it?
I'm trying to work out whether the shop's called BIGWIG, or maybe the shop is called BIGWIG after the matron of the place, who's been called BIGWIG because she makes the best wigs. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it's all based off of that.
So I had a thought that maybe BIGWIG is like an associated term that they use, but then my coming in, like if you talk about the girl that comes back for each summer because she's at college and that sort of thing, or whatever, and she's sort of,
and maybe they call her the big
she's not ready for the big wig yet. She's not ready for the big
wig
yet, and that's her, like, and all the women joke about it in the in the salon.
Yeah.
And it's like a thing. It's like a state. It's like a state of being rather than an actual
State of
thing.
being.
Yeah, and it's
a
when she
martial
like
art
takes...
now.
Yeah, well,
You
yeah,
have not yet attained BIGWIG.
yeah. But
Well,
like
maybe they said, but maybe like
when she stands
this is
up
a
for the
big
civil
thing
rights, when she understands it and she stands up for the civil rights movement.
Yeah, you're a
and it
bigwig
turns out
now.
that all the women here
Yeah.
have already been doing that their entire lives.
Yeah.
She's got
Yeah.
the bigwig now. She's got bigwig status now.
That's nice.
big quick status.
Well, this is actually a good point. So, is there one particular protagonist who we're following, or is it the community in the shop as a whole?
I guess that would come out, I reckon, in the script and the casting. So I reckon what would happen is obviously it's based around this young girl. She's our chronometer, isn't she? We see her come back every summer, and so we see her growth. And the other ones are sort of more, I don't want to say stagnant, but they're there, right? So they're unmoving.
Static.
Static, yeah. But maybe they're not. Obviously, there's the opportunity for maybe one of them to pass on, one of the older ladies to pass on. Maybe there's the opportunity for some of them to move away or have to be forced to move away. So we start to see a change in that.
What happens when a white girl comes in to get a haircut?
Well, I don't. Again, at this time, I don't think that would happen.
That's true,
and I think that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
So there would be white only hairdressers, and so there would be black only hairdressers as well. And I think we would get that quite clearly, and we might see that.
If you wanted it, if you didn't want to focus on one particular person specifically, you could treat the wig shop or barber shop as the protagonist, and so over time, that the character of the shop develops based on who's coming in and what's happening.
I love that.
And then you also see how the shop is affected itself by what's going on outside. So you have the sacred space, and what if it gets ransacked?
Yeah.
You know, what if their world explodes and it's the shop that you see as the conduit for that message?
Yeah.
That's great. I was going to say, sort of, you almost want to anchor it. I would sort of take that one step further, but absolutely that's where my brain was as well. Like, so you have, a picture on the wall of Bigwig, the person who has been named the original Bigwig, Mama Bigwig or Bigwig. I don't want to sound like that's too much of a cliche, but like whatever it would have been, the matriarch Bigwig. And you almost utilize that picture of her as the protagonist. So characters will reference her, talk to her. There will, as the shop grows, it's like shop. Yeah, the picture is like the head of the shop, and then the shop is the body, right? And that's so. Yeah, it's exactly what you're saying, Mike. I absolutely love that. Like, it's just a vessel for all these sort of different changing ideals and this growth, and it itself changes over time. And you have this picture. This is the wanky director, and this is hashtag wanky director. Is that like that picture? If you almost treat it and shoot it like a protagonist, and you come back to it, and people will talk to it. They'll reference it. Maybe you find out that it's not even the picture of the original woman. It's just a figurehead, because sometimes you need something to rally around. Who knows? But ultimately, you would shoot it like it's a main character. And yeah, I think you sort of sometimes you can elevate material just by attaching some sort of I don't know how you'd phrase it, like just some subtle visual cues, and you change the whole meaning of an entire piece. Right, at this point, it leads me to ask Dan if he can remind us what happens to this idea. You always look surprised, Dan, even though you know it's coming.
It's because I thought you would do it. Do you know what I mean? Like one day you're going to go. Do you know what?
Sean
Actually,
doesn't
Dan,
have to do a job.
I know how this works.
If Sean doesn't have to do a job, he won't.
If Sean
that's
doesn't,
that's why he
doesn't
bought
know
a
how to
dishwasher,
do it.
because he doesn't cook. He doesn't cook in parties. But he always does the washing up. So we've got a dishwasher to do all that for him.
Putting the dishes away during a
Cheating
party
the
is
system.
valuable thinking time. It's the dream. It's the equivalent of dreaming while you're awake. You file everything that everyone said to you. You put all the dishes in the dishwasher at a party. Put them all in.
It's
Sort it
also
out.
efficient. It's efficient use. Do you know what I mean? Like efficient use of your time. If you're making dinner for a party and you choose to outsource that and get a takeaway, is that any
I
less
gave you an
valid?
out, Dan.
Do you know what I mean?
gave you an out, Dan, to get Sean to figure out how to learn out these heats. If you want to keep explaining it, you go ahead.
We've got a time limit on these podcasts, and so that's why I take it over. But having said that, Sean, what happens with these apparently? And it's getting
Just remind me, because I
more
just don't
worrying.
remember. I just don't remember.
I
Dan.
think that's
Yeah.
what it is. Well, no, you just want.
Shall I tell you? Shall
Yeah,
I
go
make
on, Mike.
something
Yeah,
up?
go on. Tell us. Tell us
Mike,
what
go on,
happens.
Here's how it works. Here how it works.
Now we all go and have a shot of tequila, and then we come back and we tell each other a poem that we wrote while under the effects,
Oh,
and then we take a call, and we tell the caller the poems, and then they judge.
wow. Do we just
And
call a
then the
random
podcast
number?
ends.
Or
Hang on, you've just come up with the next.
yeah, that's a
podcast.
better idea than Slash Dupe. Yeah.
It would be called posing
happens,
under
Sean?
the influence.
Oh,
What happens is that the winner of today, whoever that might be, they go into the pot with another 5 winners of this section of this heat. No, I'm going to start again because this is utterly ridiculous.
It's so hard. It's hard. It is hard to explain.
Short, sharp, and
It's
sexy.
not. It's short and sharp, right? So, Sean, here's how it happens. At the end of every episode, someone's crowned the winner, and they all go into a pot. And at the end of 6 episodes, we have an adjudicator round. If you haven't listened to any of those,
We
go
have our
listen to
heat,
those.
don't
They
we?
are
We have our
awesome.
heat. Yeah.
Yeah, the adjudicator heat. They choose one of those 6, and at the end of 4 of those heats, we should end up with four winners. And then we're going to take 2 wild cards.
Yeah, as
I
voted
think one
by,
of them might
yeah.
even be voted by the
so.
by the crowd.
See, look, I do remember.
via our listener, and then those 6 go into the final, and that winner of that final, we're going to make into the trailer of a film.
Yes, which has been creeping closer every day. The
Yeah,
realization that we actually
it's
have
more
to
of
do
a
that.
reality now.
Yeah.
And we have not got the skills yet.
Oh, that's cool.
So,
I didn't even know that. That's amazing.
if your Bigwig wins, then we're going to have to hire a subpar Pixar animation company.
So yeah, any suggestions? Yeah.
Go call Seth MacFarlane. He'll make anything.
So if you get onto Slash Dupe on all of our socials, that's Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. That's at Slash Dupe and /r Slash Dupe for Reddit as well.
Reddit.
You can vote on the ideas for the wild cards to go into the final, and then could potentially be the crowdsourced episode that wins. So you can find all of that at Slash Dupe. And actually, I realised, because we've got such an obscure title, if you just Google Slash Dupe, all of it comes up. There's no other thing out there. We are unique.
That's one thing you can say for us, is that we are unique. So today's dupe is Ryan. You would think twice bitten, once shy, but Ryan will not shy away from the challenges inherent in only hearing the title for the very first time at the start of this episode. You're a glutton for punishment, aren't you, Ryan?
Yeah, I love being bitten.
He loves it. He loves it. It's one of his things. So, okay, you've got Bigwig. You've had 40 minutes or so to think about it. Please give us your, take it away with your idea for Bigwig.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Sean. So I obviously came up with a few ideas, as I normally do. I toyed with the idea of a B horror movie about a giant Lovecraftian style wig that attacks probably a city in China, because they're the type of people that would fund it. I then thought about as well Bigwig to do with a corporate games to compete to become the new head of the company. A sort of Hunger Games style thing that works like that. And then I'll tell you my idea, and then I'll just tell you the idea. The other title was sort of problematic. So I wanted to make something that's a kind of a meta film, as a meta series, right? I'm going down Dan's route. I'm going down the Netflix series route. Sort of meta, you know, like the way AJ and the Queen was kind of meta about RuPaul, about being a drag artist. And what was one with Charlie Kaufman, where like he wrote it and it's about him, but he doesn't.
Synecdoche, New York.
Man on the Moon?
Either one of those, if that's what it is. If he wrote them and they're about him, that sort of like meta film. So this is a meta film about Jonathan Ross.
Wow. What? Wow.
Oh, so wait, I have a question. Instantly, I have a question.
Sure.
Is the title of the film actually Big Rig?
You have absolutely nailed it. Yes. Right? You've
How
absolutely
did you
nailed
know
it.
that? Oh my god.
Right? but it's
Amazing.
big wigs. So basically, Jonathan Ross in his show does something awful, maybe I don't know, trips and pulls Cardi B's weave off her head or something like that, or like maybe he just gets aged out of doing his show, where they want all these new young guys to do these chat show hosts, and they're sort of pushing other guys out. So he goes drinking in a bar, some dive bar somewhere, because he doesn't want to get noticed, and he sees all these long haul truckers having like loads of fun, and he's like, oh, whatever, those guys doing whatever they're gonna do, whatever. So anyway, so starts to shop his professional CV around, isn't getting any work, goes back to the bar drinking, and he starts chatting to them, and he's like, honestly, this is a great job. They'll take anyone on, even you, Jonathan Ross. So this would be like, the first couple of episodes of this Netflix show, he is learning how to drive the big truck, and it's all a bit weird, and they're all sort of, he keeps talking about the big rig, but can't, obviously, is mispronouncing the W and the R.
Also, do you have to work up to the big rig? You can't go big rig straight away, so that's why
he's going straight in.
Oh, okay.
Right, but this gives him the idea, and obviously we'll have some kind of montage where he learns how to drive it, gets his HGV license or whatever it is to do that, or maybe he's got it already because he had to do it for like one of the shows he was on. It was like, I don't know, part of like a challenge that he had to do or something like that. So maybe he's got it already. But he then realizes that there's not any, he can monetize this, right? So he creates Jonathan Ross's big wig.
Yeah.
And it's his truck, and inside of his truck he sets up microphones, streaming cameras, and it's like a marathon TV show. He's the producer, he gets to talk about wherever he wants, he's not hamstrung, and he basically like live streams himself while he's doing these long haul trucking deliveries, just talking out all of his own thoughts, and it's sort of like a bit of a therapy for him, but also he can like then get people into the rig with him, and it's like a whole thing, Jonathan Ross's big wig, and he starts to get guests in for the long haul, people who have like played truckers or talked about it, or musicians in that will like write a whole album or write a whole song while they're on like the, I don't know, however long this journey is that he's going to be taken. And I know Sean really loves SnowRunners.
Yeah, so SnowRunner the game, so good.
SnowRunner the game, so that
you
he
just
gets
play
the guys
long
in.
haul, or you play like a truck driver in like a bunch of different wildernesses, and you're just driving like lorries around, picking up loads, dropping them off and stuff. And it's genuinely one of the most meditative and satisfying games I've ever played. During the lockdown, I genuinely recommend it to anyone. It's like, once you get into it, it's like meditation. It's called SnowRunner. It's amazing.
Noted.
And so, I mean, like, that may be, I mean, maybe I might retcon it here, but maybe that's what he does when he's sitting at home and he's not getting a job, and he starts playing SnowRunner.
Well, it's a little bit like The Trip, isn't it? So, like, it has this sort of feeling that it's sort of a documentary, but not even documentary. You have a feeling almost like it's real life that's being observed. And his son's playing SnowRunner, and he sort of comes in and goes, "What's that?" And that sort of sparks off the idea.
Yeah,
so he next career move.
Yes,
but he's actually a career, right? He's actually got to do it. He's actually got to do it for work. But he monetizes it by making it like a show where he gets to talk to people for a prolonged period of time. So he's not hamstrung by advertisers and time limits. It's literally like he can just talk for hours with these people. It's completely unedited. You get the real, you get to see the real side of him. And I think so then he then starts to get sponsors from the things that he's hauling. So like his journeys become like longer because he is like, and then it has to, and that's how he start, we're here with I don't know, the Colonel, and it's like he's like hauling a bunch of chickens for KFC or whatever. And like, and so that's, and but he starts to like combine the two things he loves, right? Being a presenter and having a sort of show where he's not hamstrung by anyone, but then he's also doing it to make a living. Like he's still on, raising the profile of long haul truckers.
I mean, it's interesting that he can interview people over several days of actual work as well. They're actually doing long haul trucking work and delivering stuff and signing stuff off and parking up, and he's interviewing them maybe because over a period of days, the you can dig deeper into the questions that you ask, maybe, and you've shared a cab with someone, and you share a meal at the truck stop, sort of thing. So,
and that's exactly what I was going to say. So then he also like anyone who reaches out for their businesses their first time, they try to grab everything with all their hands. So this is him like, oh, maybe I can also do the reviews of every truck stop that I find, and like I can also talk to every trucker that I meet to like get a story from them and stuff like that. And yes, maybe he does some of that. And then, you start to understand, like, some people are doing this for a living. Some people are doing it because they have to. Some people look down on him because they're like, I've been doing this for years. You're, like, coming in here I just want to, like, do my job and get out of here. And now people are trying to give you jobs because it gives them a spotlight. And they're waiting a week for you to drive here when I've been sitting in the town twiddling my thumbs. And so it's that's where the idea of raising that profile of the truckers comes from as well. And that's sort of, I haven't particularly... I think maybe, I guess the end of season 1 will be like he's obviously done really, really well in this, got loads of viewers off his own back and everything like that. Twitch love him and, everything else. And then he gets his show offered back to him. Oh, you can come back and redo the Jonathan Ross show. And he'll and that'll be the end of season 1. He'll be still sitting there with the contract. And obviously then if Netflix renew it, then he, obviously then, the beginning of season 2 is him getting rid of it, but if they don't, it's a limited series, 8 episodes.
Yeah,
and that that's
honestly
that's the basis of my idea for Bigwig, a meta Jonathan Ross.
Yeah, well, Netflix gave Letterman a good sort of show, and he sort of managed to sort of reinvent himself, and it's part of his personality is in the show as well as interviewing these really interesting guests. So yeah, I mean, there's scope for it, I think, and it's like, I mean. I apologise deeply for this, genuinely, but the tagline needs to be "Let's get this show on the road," doesn't it? And like it's spelt WODE, right, or something like that.
But I think he leans into it. He leans into the fact that it's like he's done that. I've seen him on a lot of talk shows where he does lean into that. Oh, hang on a minute. Let's just because I can't think of what it's called. I don't want to call it
speech
disability.
Impediment, isn't it?
Thank you very much.
Speech impediment.
I've listened to like a lot of shows where he leans into his speech impediment and he doesn't sort of shy away from it where some other people would.
No,
so
I'm
that's
sure he regards it as part of
is...
his USP, as part of his personality.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's why he doesn't that's why he still calls it his Bigwig as
so
well.
my one tweak that I would make, I don't know if anyone else has any feedback for this, but my one tweak would be I would love to have him genuinely just, it's a long haul trucking thing where he just interviews regular people. So he'll pick them up somewhere and he'll just interview them for the duration of, sort of wherever their next stop is or something. It's engendered so that they are going on a certain journey. He'll just pick up a few people, talk to them about anything and interview them like he would a celebrity, but just the everyman, the every person.
So like the people who are hitchhiking, like...
Yeah, stuff like that. And it's like a big throwback sort of... It's a big throwback show.
Ask ass or grass, then it's what the sort of thing is, isn't it?
What's that? Is this something that we're going to cut?
No, but it's like the thing when truckers would like pick up hitchhikers, they'd ask gas or grass. As in, like, you paying for gas? Are you giving me drugs or ass?
Yeah, maybe we do have to cut that.
It's a thing. Honestly, it's a thing.
That might have to go.
And
That's so funny.
it's a thing. And also, we've got the wonderful world of CB radio slang to talk about as well.
For sure.
Yeah. 10-4, got a bear in the air, going to go get me some of that. I don't know. Fox hunting, gator, alligator, handle. 10-4. Gotta get me some of that. Go juice. I don't know. I'm just literally looking at Wikipedia.
It's great, but that deflated. I don't know. It's definitely going to stay in there.
But that's exactly what it is. Like, that's the first time he gets on the CB radio. He's like,
I don't know.
Yeah, gonna head on down to Las Wages. That's what I call Las Vegas.
Right, so we had the title Bigwig today. I wasn't quite sure how it would go down. I didn't have an idea myself, but I thought there must be something interesting out of it. And we got 3 absolutely fantastic, completely diverse pitches out of it. We had Mike's pitch to begin with, a sort of sub-Pixar animated film with telepathically talking wigs in a post-apocalyptic world where Wiggy, our protagonist, becomes the lost wig, and she tries to journey home. But in doing so, she finds new purpose. She's lost no more, because she finds the sort of harmony of her new community and rises up with the community to take down the evil corporation. We had a wig shop type drama in the civil rights era America via Dan, or actually I'd rather say via Dan's wife. A one location film which the location becomes the protagonist. It sort of presides over all of these characters, and it allows for a safe space and also perhaps a secret space to explore tough issues, both past and present. And then we had Ryan's film about cops and doggers. No, that's just a small part of it. Ryan, the Dupe, had a TV show idea, a limited series or a series where, whether it's meta or not, Jonathan Ross as a long-haul trucker, where he interviews the everyman or the companies to which he is hauling, and part of the journey is the freedom of the road itself, maybe the freedom to ask whatever questions come to you. It's sort of carpool karaoke meets comedians in cars getting coffee. So they're three absolutely completely different ideas. And you can imagine, I don't know if anybody else feels this as well, but I think it's possibly the hardest. Do I say this all the time? It's possibly the hardest decision I've had to make.
Just quickly, Sean, are you missing musicals or the theatre? Because you've tried to interject musicals into all three of our ideas just now.
Well, I'm not sure I entered musicals into the Jonathan Ross idea.
You said obviously just... Well, you just said it's like carpool karaoke.
Oh, I see,
think you're sort of...
Maybe, mate, I tell you what, my fiance's Japanese, half Japanese, and I have learnt the true freedom that comes with karaoke. You know, not just drunken karaoke after a night out, but like you go to a karaoke bar and you're there in the little room, and you know that whatever you belt out, you have the support of everyone around you, and it doesn't matter what you're singing. If you want to belt out Vanilla Ice, everybody's there with you. If you want to belt out GoldenEye, like that is my new karaoke tune. Anyway, listen, it's not about me. I'm just saying that I'm missing karaoke more than I thought I would during the lockdown.
Aren't we all?
Right? So yes, despite that, I will continue, as difficult as it is missing karaoke. This has honestly been the hardest decision, genuinely.
Well, none of them are even vaguely close to each other. It's
like I know, yeah. And they're all of such a great quality. Okay, I'm going to frame it like this, and I hope that everyone will forgive me, and everyone at home, if you disagree, please, sort of don't dox me or anything, but you can let us know in the comments. You can let us know. I love the Jonathan Ross one, but Ryan, it's great, but it's just the third best out of the three. It's still absolutely fantastic. It's take your pick of whichever Lord of the Rings film you like the least. It's that one, right? It's still a Lord of the Rings film, right? For me, I don't know.
That's so
probably
good.
The Return of the King's my least favourite, but I still love it, right? Also, I secretly love and I could see everyone's eyes light up when you talked about...
Cops and Doggers? Of course you really like that.
No.
Of course it was.
But I'm going to... Okay, I'll lead into this. So let me just say quickly, corporate games where you decide who becomes the boss, that's an idea that has, like, Jason Bateman written all over it. Like, you could see it on Netflix tomorrow.
Jason Bateman or Jason Statham?
Oh,
both.
Both. It's Bateman on one side and Statham on the other. Yeah.
Amazing.
And that writes itself. It's got Netflix written all over it. It makes $1 billion. Everyone's rich. So I love that idea, Ryan. And you tease us sometimes with the ideas that you don't expand on. I'm gonna.
It's just It's just that again. So well, you know, I might as well Kanye this and jump on stage. It's just as I was talking about earlier about the spinning that gold. You know, just spin too much gold. Rumpelstiltskin over here. Hashtag Rumpelstiltskin. Hashtag Ryan is Rumpelstiltskin.
Stock has gone down because you overspun the gold.
Oversaturated the market.
I'm going to have to.
Was Rumpelstiltskin about
capitalism?
Saturation.
Yeah, maybe.
Capitalism.
It is. It's an allegory for inflation. Yeah.
So, as much as I would like to carry on talking about Rumpelstiltskin and pretend I don't have a decision to make, the tough thing is that, I think that I would like to bring you back, Mike, almost in the first sort of heat block of the second series, which is coming up. I would love to invite you back. I would love to set you an even greater challenge because I make notes as I go, and sometimes I already know who's going to win as I go through because I think nothing's going to top this. And you had me at the wig idea, and I was writing down. I wrote down Roger Rabbit vibes, and I wrote down you have to sacrifice comfort for a worthy cause. Like I was like, because I was seriously thinking about the journey of the woman in the wig, but what I'd like to do is I think it comes in second for me. Because I would like to bring you back and I want to challenge you further. Now, part of me wants to give you cops and doggers, but because I know you've got a dark side, Mike. You're too sweet and lovely most of the time. I can see the dark side poking out. Not
on the podcast. We'll talk about that later.
But this is why I hope that you don't mind me selecting the one that Dan put forward for BIGWIG, because I feel like. Although people at home will also know, when you're listening, you'll also know I do love the silly ideas, and I do pick the ones that like seem silly at first, but then have something to it. Like I do love those, and I'm not picking it just because it's a difficult topic. But I think that Dan really needs to thank his wife, because the kernel of the idea that came in 4 minutes before we started. That what it then did is, because of you, Mike, and because of you, Ryan, it then blossomed into something completely different, didn't it? And that's the beauty of Slash Dupe. So whilst, Mike, I want you, please bring the same level of quality and detail that you brought with your idea. I absolutely adored it. And our friend Sam was on a previous episode of Stitch in Time. He won that one, so he's going to lord it over you, and I'm so sorry for that, Mike. Okay, I'm really, really sorry.
It's fine.
But you were the closest second place that we've ever had.
You guys are all, you're all related. You got this podcast. You bring someone on, and then you shit all over their idea.
It's fine.
Oh, God.
I agree with Sean.
Oh God!
It's such a close second. If Dan is Usain Bolt, you're that other guy that came second that no one remembers.
Oh no! Mike, I love you. I love this idea. It's honestly, I swear to God, this is the hardest decision I've had to make.
Who is that person? I'm going to Google it.
But there's some sort of
some
sort of magic that Dan. I need him to go away, tail in between his legs, and thank his wife for his contribution.
Yes. And she will never hear this, so I don't have to, because she'll never listen to it. So
and if I could repair it in any way, I would like to have you back. Please, Mike. And
I think, Mike, it was almost too good. And also, we have to make a trailer of it, right? So,
that would win for sure, right? Yeah,
I suppose.
And everybody would force.
You don't want to give yourselves too much work.
Although
someone else would outsource that, definitely.
Yeah. I super appreciate it. The better idea won, I think.
So Ryan, where can people find us if they need to?
You can find us all, as I said, if you just Google /Dupe, you can find us literally everywhere. We've got a Patreon, we've got a Reddit, we've got a Twitter, we've got an Instagram, we've got a Facebook. If you really want to join in the conversation, hit us up on Facebook. That's where we're getting most of our traction currently. Taj is doing great work in giving us his ideas. Mm-hmm. We really need someone to come in, knock him off the top spot, and come up with a couple of ideas yourself. He is giving us paragraphs,
Yeah. He's done good work. So, I mean, all things considered, Mike, have you enjoyed yourself today on /Dupe?
Oh, so much fun! Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. It's been a delight.
No, we've loved every
in an
second
otherwise relatively uneventful period of our lives. This is a genuine pleasure. Yeah, really, really fun. Also, first podcast I've ever been on. So
nice.
Yeah.
Well, remarkable.
We'll send reference letters.
Very happy
out.
for you all to have taken my podcast virginity.
And so roughly at the end as well, you know?
So cruel.
So cruel.
Yeah, no, I honestly had a really wonderful time. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. It was a real genuine pleasure for us as well. Dan, Ryan, thank you very much as well.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
We haven't figured out how to properly do the end bit. It's not that, obviously.
That's where we're going to cut.
Yeah.
Not after the buy. We're just going to.
We haven't figured out.
and smash.
Yeah, that'll
into
do.
the
That's
thing.
fine. Thanks.
Cool.
Cheers, everyone. That was amazing. Mike, I hope you don't mind, mate. Honest to God, I swear to God, that was the hardest decision I've ever had to make on the podcast.
Recorded in the Capo Studios, 2021. What's up, danger?